Why would a man who conquered the world of MotoGP, who bled on the asphalt and rewrote history with his elbows and heart, refuse to wear the most powerful symbol of domination in motorsport, the number 1? And why, just as that question still echoes across paddocks and fan forums, did an even darker whisper begin to circulate, that motorcycles once belonging to VR46 and Marc Márquez were seized by the FBI? Then came the final tremor, when veteran insider Carlo Pernat looked straight into the cameras and declared without blinking that Marc Márquez would never, ever refuse Honda if they came calling. Coincidence? Or the pieces of a puzzle far bigger than anyone dares to imagine? Before you decide, stay with us. Comment your theory, hit like if this story gives you chills, and subscribe because what you are about to read does not behave like ordinary racing news. Marc Márquez's relationship with the number 1 is one of the strangest love stories in modern sport. In most racing cultures, the number 1 is not just a digit, it is a crown. Riders dream of it as children. They sketch it on notebooks. They imagine it on their bikes while watching their heroes. Yet Márquez, even after claiming the MotoGP World Championship, repeatedly refused to use it. To casual fans, the decision looked humble, even quirky. To those inside the paddock, it felt symbolic, emotional, and perhaps even strategic. Márquez once explained that his own number, 93, carried his identity, his journey, and his pain. It was the number he fought with when no one believed he would dominate. It was the number etched into every scar on his body. Changing it, even temporarily, felt like erasing part of himself. But that explanation only scratches the surface. Those closest to Márquez have often hinted that the number 1 carries an invisible weight. It is a magnet for pressure, for politics, for internal expectations that can quietly poison a season. Márquez is not a rider who wants to defend a symbol. He wants to defend a fight. He wants a target on his chest, not on his fairing. By keeping 93, he keeps his past alive and his hunger intact. In his own words, the crown is something you feel in your helmet, not something you paint on your bike. And yet, while fans were still debating psychology and superstition, another story exploded into the background of MotoGP like a thunderclap. Motorcycles connected to VR46 and Marc Márquez were allegedly seized by the FBI. First, it sounded impossible. Why would an American federal agency be involved in European racing machines? The rumor spread across social media, twisted by speculation and fear. Some claimed the bikes were part of a larger investigation into illegal parts. Others whispered about shipping irregularities, ownership disputes, even international trade violations. No official statement clarified the entire situation, and that silence only made the story darker. In motorsport, where secrecy is oxygen and politics are invisible weapons, the absence of answers is often more dangerous than the truth. Those close to the paddock described the mood as tense, cautious, electric. Engineers avoided certain questions. Managers refused to comment. And fans, hungry for explanation, began stitching together fragments of conversations, leaked photos, airport sightings, and sudden schedule changes. Whether the seizure was temporary, symbolic, bureaucratic, or something more serious, the fact remained, the name Marc Márquez was suddenly being spoken in the same breath as FBI. For a sport built on speed, this moment felt frozen in time. Then, just as the storm reached its loudest point, Carlo Pernat stepped forward. Pernat is not a man who speaks lightly. He has seen generations rise and fall. He understands contracts, egos, secrets, and the deep politics of MotoGP better than most. When he stated publicly that Marc Márquez would never refuse an offer from Honda, the paddock went silent. Why such certainty? Because Pernat understands something many fans don't. The bond between Márquez and Honda is not just professional. It is emotional, historical, almost spiritual. Honda gave Márquez his battlefield. They shaped him into a weapon. Together they broke records that once seemed untouchable. Injuries came. Doubt came. Seasons of suffering followed. But that history forged something deeper than contracts. Pernat's words were not speculation. They were recognition of loyalty built from blood, broken bones, and shared nightmares. When he said Márquez would never say no, he wasn't talking about money or prestige. He was talking about identity. This is where the stories begin to connect. The refusal of the number 1, the shadow of the FBI seizure, and Pernat's declaration about Honda all orbit the same truth. Marc Márquez does not operate like a typical champion. He is driven by meaning, by memory, by loyalty, and by a relentless need to control his own narrative. He rejects symbols that trap him. He moves carefully when forces outside racing approach his world. And when loyalty is tested, he does not flinch. The number one would turn him into a statue. He wants to remain a warrior. The FBI story, whether fully understood or not, reminded everyone that racing lives inside a world of power, money, and international attention. And Pernod's words reminded the paddock that Márquez, for all his fame, is still deeply anchored to the machine that made him who he is. Fans often ask, is Marc Márquez the same rider after everything he has endured? The answer, according to those who truly know him, is no. He is more dangerous now, not because he is faster, but because he understands exactly who he is and what he will never sacrifice. A rider like that does not wear a crown. He builds a kingdom inside himself. And so the next time you see the number 93 slicing through a corner, remember that behind it lies a man who once rejected the ultimate symbol of victory, stood at the center of one of the most mysterious off-track storms in recent memory, and remains bound by an unbreakable loyalty that even the biggest offers in the world cannot shake. Is this the mindset that will define the next era of MotoGP? Is Márquez preparing something none of us are ready for? And what do you believe truly happened behind those closed doors? Tell us your theory in the comments. If this story made you feel the tension of racing beyond the track, hit like and subscribe, because in MotoGP, the real drama often begins where the cameras stop.